Hey folks, okay, so I've decided that today I'm not going to head into the office. Instead I'm going to head to a local coffee shop. And the reason for that is that I've realised that, you know, basically as long as I have my laptop, I can really do my PhD wherever I am. So, and there's this coffee shop in the south side of Glasgow where I've done pretty much all the essays I've ever written. And I'm finding the office, you know, having an office is really cool, but I don't know, I'm finding it kind of weirdly quiet, and it's not my usual kind of working environment, so I'm going to give this coffee shop a try, see how it goes, and maybe I'll start splitting my time between, you know, office a couple of days a week and coffee shop some other days a week, so we'll try it out, I'll let you know how it goes. Hey folks, okay, so I had my meeting with Nigel and Moira, and it's the first time we've all met together for the PhD, and we agreed on a timetable. So I'm going to have one chapter done by Christmas and another chapter done by Easter, and that's pretty good because it means that I have my annual review in April, where some of the higher ups in the department will kind of take a look at what I've been doing and decide whether I can continue or not. So having 2 chapters done by then will be, you know, definitely be useful to have that all sorted. We also set some more kind of short-term goals, so they want me to have some writing done by the end of October on some of the laws and regulations which I'm going to be studying, which are, you know, going to be part of this PhD, so that's good. I've been continuing to kind of work in the coffee shop instead of in my office, and I got to say I'm really on a roll. You know, I was getting a little bit worried that you know, I was kind of struggling to really get through the stuff, but now that I've changed my working environment, I'm definitely steaming through, so absolutely feeling good, feeling positive, getting a lot of work done, and yeah, so I'll talk to you guys soon. Okay folks, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you guys some of the tools that I've been using and that I find really useful and which I think are going to be a real asset to me in my PhD. So let's jump right in. The first thing that I really want to talk about is I think it's really important for people to have a decent app that they can use to take notes, you know, just a way to get stuff out of your head and to get stuff out of notebooks that are strewn all over the place and to get them into a kind of central repository which is easy to access from anywhere. And the program that I use for this is Microsoft OneNote. There is another really popular one called Evernote, but I chose OneNote because I just found that I really liked the way that it lays everything out in a kind of notebook-like fashion. And I'm going to show you guys how I used it for my master's degree as opposed to my PhD, because I've not really fleshed out my PhD notebook yet. So this is what my master's notebook looked like, and you can see here I have my kind of section tabs up here, which you might, you know, have in a normal notebook. You know, these all corresponded to a course that I was taking, and this is my urban theory and research course, and you can see here at the top of every section I had just the course outline and just kind of general notes of importance for the course. You can see here I have assignment hand-in dates, the reading that I had to do, some things about the assessments. I had the core reading down here that I had to remember, and I also copied in the whole course outline. And the really cool thing about this is that it's not only available on my own MacBook, it's also available, you know, on your iPhone, your iPad, PCs, anywhere. You can also get it on the web, which is great. So that's OneNote, and just one more cool thing, you can use it for kind of big things you have to remember like this, and because you can get it from anywhere, you can do stuff like just copy in books that you need to get. So for example, I was at my desktop one day and I thought I have to get all these books, so I just copied and pasted them from the library website as I found them. Went straight up to the library, and because you can see here I had the shelf numbers, I was able to just pull them up on my phone and see exactly where they were. So that was really useful, and I really recommend you get something like this. Okay, so another application that I want to talk about is I want to talk about the importance of having a decent article and PDF manager. So just to give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about and why it's important, here's an example of how I did stuff during my undergraduate degree. So you can see this is one of the courses I took, and you can see here I have you know, a kind of filing system, and I have PDFs strewn all over the place. So just looking here, you can see there's no real order in the way that I titled these. You know, this one's titled by author and year, whereas this one is just the title. You know, trying to find stuff in here was definitely quite difficult. So the way I got around that is by using some kind of PDF manager, and the one that I use is called Papers, but there are other ones out there, and there's some free ones including Mendeley, which I know is really popular, and this is just a really nice way of keeping all your stuff together. You can see here everything is organized nicely. You've got the titles, you've got the journal name, you can have the author's name here. I've not quite got everything set out right, so there's not necessarily author names on all of them yet, but there will be soon. And one nice thing you can do is you can actually look and you can easily highlight stuff that's important, and you can also bring up notes. You can put notes in. So for example here, just under half of landlords were private individuals. I thought that was surprisingly low. I thought it would be much more than that, so I took a little note there just to remind me. So that is Papers. Another good thing about this is it synchronizes all your files to Dropbox, so you can access them on the Mac, on the PC, on your iPhone, on your iPad. It works really great, especially if you're kind of out and about and not necessarily always working from the same spot. So check out Papers or Mendeley. There are other ones like EndNote, Zotero. Check them all out and see which one works best for you. Hey folks, okay, that is me at the end of my PhD video blogging journey. It's been great fun, and at this last clip I just want to tell you guys a little bit about my experience of the PhD application process, and hopefully you'll find it useful and be able to learn something from it. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is finding PhD opportunities. The way that, if you're looking for PhD funding, there are a couple of things that you're just going to have to run through, because they're, a really good ways to find PhDs are to check out aggregator websites, so things like jobs.ac.uk. If you've got some departments in mind that you're interested in applying to, make sure you check out their news feeds or blogs, get on their email newsletter system, because they'll be publicising any opportunities that come up. Also, apply to your Research Council for funding. Research Council funding is super competitive, but if you don't apply for it, you're definitely not going to get it. So get an application in, and the worst thing they can say is no. But for me, by far the most useful way I found of getting information about PhD funding was simply letting people know that I was interested in doing a PhD. And because I was still at uni when I applied to do a PhD, I let my professors know, I let people in the department know, I let my supervisors know, and the funding that I got was through someone found out about this funding opportunity, told me about it, I applied, and I got it. And if they hadn't told me about that funding opportunity, I probably wouldn't be here. So make sure you let people know, and hopefully they'll send good stuff your way. In terms of actually putting your application together, that's a much harder thing to talk about, because every application is going to be different. Every field is going to be different. Applications within the same field are all going to be different. The number one tip I got, which I think was useful, was get to the point quickly, and then talk about all the justifications, etc. So get your research question in there near the beginning. Don't leave it till the middle or the end. Get in there, tell them what you're going to do, and then justify why you're doing it, etc. Now, interviews. Interviews for me were tough. I spent a good chunk of time before my interviews Googling, PhD interview tips, what kind of questions they ask at PhD interviews, and I got to say that was time utterly wasted. The tips that I got online, the things that they said they were going to ask on these websites, those questions did not come up at all. So I think those kind of things were geared more towards a US PhD, where maybe you don't go in with a fully fleshed out project, where maybe you spend your first year coming up with your project. I was going in with a project in mind, and I had already written about it in my application. So they were much more interested in finding out about the project than about me. They wanted to know a bit about me, but they wanted to know the ethical issues that were going to come up in the project. They wanted to know the theoretical basis that I was going to be using in the project, stuff like that. And I wasn't really prepared for that. And those kind of questions can be quite difficult to prepare for, because trying to get your friends and family to come up with some interview, doing a mock interview with friends and family, they're probably not going to ask questions about the ethical issues of doing interviews with vulnerable people, or they might not know to ask questions about the challenges that might be involved in doing longitudinal research. So you just really got to think, really pick your project apart, think about all the things that could go wrong. It's really hard to think about that, but think about all the ways it could go wrong, and try to come up with some answers for when they inevitably ask about it. But I got to say, the interview process was actually really useful for me, because although I found it difficult at the time, the questions that they raised are the first questions that I'm addressing right now, and I got to say I'm grateful for that. So yeah, so that is me. Best of luck to everyone who's applying for a PhD. I'm sure you'll do just fine, and maybe we'll do this again someday. But until then, best of luck, and I'll see you all later.